Okay, so when most of us think about weight and health, it's usually all about the physical stuff.
Yeah, the scale, BMI, things like that, that's the usual focus.
But what if there's more to it, like a whole other layer we often miss?
Mm,
Today, we're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating study out of Slovakia. It kind of shifts the lens away from just the numbers.
it really does.
Our mission here is to unpack how things like um, weight stigma and maybe even social support play these surprisingly big roles in mental well-being.
And what's so interesting, I think, is how it challenges that standard view. It's not just about BMI.
Right.
It's more about the experience, the social side, the internal feeling of living in a bigger body. It puts the person back in the picture, not just the biology.
Okay, so let's get into this study then. They looked at 189 adults with overweight or obesity. What did they find about, experiencing weight stigma? Was it common?
Oh, definitely. Pretty widespread, actually. About 41% said they'd experienced at least one type of stigma.
Wow, 41%.
Yeah, and if you break it down, 40.4% reported being teased. Then you had 18% mentioning unfair treatment, and 14.1% facing actual discrimination because of their weight.
That's that's a lot that's happening in their real lives.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not abstract.
So this brings up a really key question, doesn't it? How much of the mental health stuff like depression, anxiety, feeling lonely is actually from the weight itself versus how much comes from dealing with all that stigma?
That's the core of it. And what the study found in its main analysis was, well, pretty striking.
Okay.
Those typical obesity measures like BMI or waist-to-height ratio, they didn't really show a significant link to depression, anxiety, or loneliness.
Really? No strong link.
Not in the main results. There was maybe a small link between BMI and depression in one specific look, but generally the direct tie wasn't really there.
Huh. So the assumption that weight directly causes this distress maybe isn't the full picture.
It suggests it's more complicated than that.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting then. The researchers found weight stigma was, what, a bigger player?
Yes, exactly. Weight stigma seemed to be a more significant factor driving depression, anxiety, and loneliness than just the obesity measures alone.
Wow.
And, even more than that, self-stigmatization. When people start to believe those negative messages about themselves,
Yeah, internalizing it.
that showed an even stronger connection to those feelings of distress. It's like a double hit to mental health.
That makes sense. It's one thing to face it from outside, another to turn it on yourself.
Absolutely. And if you think bigger picture, it really suggests the main challenge might not always be the physical side, but the kind of emotional weight of society's bias.
That psychological burden.
And that internalized stuff, that self-stigma, it can be so hard to shake off. It gets tangled up with how you see yourself.
But it wasn't all bad news, right? I remember seeing something about a counterforce in the study. Social support.
Yes, that was a crucial finding. Strong social support and good family functioning were clearly linked to lower levels of distress. Less depression, less anxiety.
Okay, so having people in your corner helps.
It really does.
Yeah.
And here's the really cool part. When they factored in that social support, those connections, the negative link between experienced stigma and depression or anxiety, it got weaker.
Weaker.
Yeah, or in some cases, it wasn't even statistically significant anymore.
Whoa. So good relationships, a supportive family, they can actually act like a buffer.
Precisely, like a shield, as you said earlier. They can lessen the sting of stigma. It even seemed to reduce the impact of self-stigma on loneliness.
That's powerful. It really highlights how much our connections matter.
It really does. The power of feeling supported and understood.
So, thinking about you, the listener, what's the big takeaway here? This deep dive really suggests that just, focusing on the number on the scale might miss a huge part of the health story.
Definitely.
A lot of the impact seems to be about how weight is seen by others, and maybe even more importantly, by ourselves.
The message seems pretty clear.
Mm.
Maybe instead of just focusing on weight loss above all else, we need a more, empathetic approach.
Weight inclusive, maybe?
Yes, weight inclusive. One that really prioritizes mental well-being, actively pushes back against stigma, and works on building those strong social connections. That might actually do more for someone's overall quality of life.
Okay, so a final thought for you to chew on. Thinking about your own world, your own life, how could you maybe help build environments for yourself or the people around you that really champion that kind of social support and actively try to dismantle weight stigma? Something to think about.